very limited bed capacity. Transfers are delayed. ICU beds are very limited. And for that reason alone, we are in what we would consider crisis standard of care for Alaska. It's a very concerning place to be as a hospital. Here locally, we continue to do okay and not suffer from staffing shortages, although we do find the impacts from quarantine and having people out on COVID still slows things down a bit, but we are staying strong. And that is my update for now. I'm glad to field any questions.
Councilman Gleason.
Yeah, hey, Hannah. I got one question about there's a booster coming out maybe in September. Do you know anything new about that vaccine?
Yeah, so we'll be looking at a booster. Right now, the guidance is to use the vaccine that you were previously immunized with. It will be 8 months after your second dose. So we will be looking at giving those probably more October, looking from when our population will be 8 months after their second dose. And we will be ready to roll that out as soon as everybody is eligible along that 8-month timeline. We're hoping to be able to offer those as well as flu vaccines for people that want the flu vaccine. Right now, with everybody kind of getting back to some normal activity, we are starting to see other viruses that we'd see in normal years, and kids were starting to see more RSV, both locally and nationwide. And we kind of expect the same thing with flu. We do expect to see a flu season this year, unlike last year.
I got one more.
Follow-up, Councilman Gleason?
I was just curious if you've been following what's going on in the Mat-Su borough with the schools, how they started out their school year with no masks, and now they've got lots of cases and they're changing their minds and going to masks. So just curious if you've been keeping up with that or not.
Thanks. Yeah, we have been keeping up with that, and that story has played out in many communities across the country and across Alaska. We're really trying to stay conservative with our recommendations for masking. The school district is working closely with the medical response team. Certainly, we are going to be asking that the school continue to require masks as long as we have any community spread cases. It is just not worth the consequences of having to close down school and have a widespread community outbreak when that happens. The R0 on Delta is, on a state meeting today, they said it was between 6 and 8. It's a very high number, and the spread with Delta still continues to spread even in communities that have a large amount of mass use, except the severity is less and the spread is also less. I know sometimes people feel like, I've been wearing a mask, it's still spreading, but it is less. The studies consistently show that mask use, especially if you have a double layered cloth mask or surgical mask, the double layered decreases the severity and the rate of spread by approximately 70%. So it's a very effective tool. We're very happy that the schools are using them. Kids are tolerating them well. As soon as we can safely be mask free, we are ready and we'll be working with the schools to make that determination. But as long as we have community spread and as long as we have our hospitals in Anchorage and providing really crisis standard care, we're really happy that the community is still working with us right now and being so willing to help have that layered mitigation and wear masks.
Thank you, Hannah.
Other questions, Council? Councilman Meyer?
Yeah, you recommended that people, whether they're vaccinated or unvaccinated, get tested after travel. How soon after arriving to Cordova should they get tested?
Ideally, we would have people wearing a mask and not gathering outside of their household for 3 to 5 days and get tested sometime in that 3 to even 7 day window. However, if people are going to be having exposures in the community or gathering on household members, we would ask that you get tested soon on arrival. We do know that if people have a find out that they have a positive test, they change their behavior. There's just some risk in that early test providing a negative result and changing behavior because the negative result from a test that was taken too early. So the best case scenario is somewhere close to that 5-day.
Okay, any questions online, council? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Dr. Sanders.
Clay?
Yes. Kellen?
So I also want to invite Heather Brannon. Heather, are you on the line?
I am. Hello.
Okay, great. I wanted her to give an update because we've been working, Heather has been working with the state of Alaska on our program at the airport to provide information to visitors. The state had asked us to stand that down as of September 30th, and then August 30th, and then a week ago, they called us and said, whoa, the state is blowing up with COVID. We're going to change our strategy. So Heather, if you want to give an update on what's going on with the airport, and also I wanted to have Heather report on where we are with the meeting that we all had discussed, having a forum for information with Dr. Zink and Cole Cutchins and Dr. Sanders. We have a Zoom meeting, a forum for community participation, and Heather will give some more information about that, but that's scheduled for next week. So Heather, why don't you give an update? Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Helen. So the state reached out after the end of our last airport ambassador contract and decided that they were going to extend that. And initially they wanted to extend it for another 6 months, and now there's word of them wanting to extend it for a year. But in that extension, their request was our ability to potentially put testing at the airport, and what would that look like for Cordova if it was something that we could support. So in the last week or so, I have reached out to Elanca, and we are able to use one of their clinic in a can to put out there. DOT is willing to offer us the space to have it there. And basically the idea is that we will take what our ambassadors normally do, just handing out packets, etc., counting incoming passengers, and we are going to train them to do antigen testing at the airport. And the purpose of the antigen testing, is we're trying to catch those folks that are coming to town that wouldn't have otherwise tested and maybe wouldn't plan on it unless it was immediately available to them. And with the antigen testing, we're not suggesting that that should be the only test that you do, but we're offering it as a pre-test while folks wait that 3 to 5 day period. If they've been out of town for a while and didn't test before they came back in, maybe they have antibodies, they can go ahead and take that. And then we're still going to recommend that they follow up with that 3 to 5 day test because the PCR is the most substantial. And so we want to make sure that we're very careful there. Any positive testing that we catch through antigen testing, I think will help prevent it moving maybe during that 3 to 5 day waiting period. We would report those positives directly to CCMC or Elanca with contact information, and then they again would be reported to the state. We haven't rounded out the entire plan of what this will look like, but I'm hoping within the next 2 weeks that we have the clinic out there, we have the testing and supplies, and that we have some folks who are willing to kind of put themselves in that position, trained to do so. Does anybody have any questions about the airport plan?
I guess I'm kind of curious about the antigen testing. So if someone takes an antigen test and tests positive for antibodies, are you still encouraging vaccination? And I guess that's a question for Dr. Sanders as well.
Well, I think the recommendation right now is that even if you have been positive with COVID, that you still should, move forward with getting vaccinated at some point. I think Hannah can probably speak to the length of time that would be, but if you show up positive on an antigen test, you are absolutely going to be required to go in and get a PCR to confirm that positive and also for state reporting.
The antigen test is a little bit different. It's not an antibody test.
Okay.
The antigen test does have a little slightly higher false negative rate than the molecular PCR test. So in the airport setting, when we had it, theoretically, we're only going to have asymptomatic people that have not been close contacts out there. This test in that setting, if we have a positive, we would need to confirm that it is indeed a positive with a molecular test. The antigen test does not detect old or previous illness like an antibody test would.
Yes, thank you. I was thanks for that clarification. I thought I'd seen something recently that they were offering antibody testing. So, okay, thank you. Any questions for Heather?
And Heather, do you want to just go ahead and just give a quick update on the a form that we're doing with the medical team to provide information to the community about vaccinations and testing and COVID in general?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have arranged with Dr. Ann Zink, the Chief Medical Advisor, and Coleman Cutchins, he's a pharmacist and the state testing lead for DHSS. They are both willing to hop on a community Zoom call with Cordova on September 8th from 5 to 6 p.m. The basis of this call is to let them kind of give us a state update on where COVID is, what that means for our community, and be able to answer some of those questions about vaccination. I know the last council meeting, there were some tough questions out there, and I think that between Ann and Coleman, they're going to be able to best kind of address some of these questions and concerns that are floating around the community. And they were gracious enough to offer us the time. So not only are we going to do it on Zoom, people can pre-register for that. I've pushed the information out on Cordova Prepared and started sending out emails and messages to different groups of folks to make sure that we get a pretty good selection of community members. It will also be live on YouTube for those who are not Facebook users. And then we have a questionnaire that has been posted out there where if someone is going to watch on YouTube, but they still want to ask a question or participate in some way, we're encouraging folks to go ahead and click on that link, enter their questions. And this will help us put together the dialogue for what the community is asking in this meeting. And so it's going to be really, really helpful.
And Dr. Sanders will also be participating from a local perspective, be able to help give folks a sense of where we are at from a local perspective.
Is that Zoom meeting is advertised on the Cordova Prepared Facebook page, Heather?
Absolutely, and it should be, I think Curtis is going to put it on the City of Cordova government page. It should be on our, I believe Curtis has got it up on our COVID-19 webpage as well. So it's pretty accessible. I think we are going to print out some posters and put them around town just for folks who aren't as internet savvy. And then I'm going to speak with JR tomorrow and see if he can verbally get out some of that information, and maybe I'll let him know where we hang posters so people can go get information. We want to be able to just reach as much of the population as possible. And after the meeting, we are going to be able to post it to the Cordova Prepared Facebook and to the government page so that folks can listen. But I'd like to express that it's really important if anybody has any questions, like this is our time to ask those questions. And the more questions we get, the better idea Ann Coleman and Hannah are all going to have about, what our speaking points should be. And we want it to be as thorough as possible.
Councilman Schaefer.
I'm wondering if it makes sense to push a Cordova conversation out before the weekend too, because a lot of people aren't on Facebook, but have, get those in the email. It's just another way to reach people.
I can check with Coleman on that. not Coleman, Curtis.
Curtis. We, just for the public's awareness, we are not doing Cordova conversation right now. We put out a notice that we aren't doing it anymore because we weren't getting the reach that we hoped for, but we are putting all the content on our website and also on Facebook. So we hope there's platforms where people can access that information.
Yeah, and I also have emailed all the faith-based leaders. I've emailed folks from the school. I have people reaching out to everyone that spoke at last week's council meeting. I believe it's been sent to Forest Service Fish and Game. It's going to be sent to the industry group. I maybe can send it up out with the senior lunches or something like that as well. So we're really going to push advertising super heavy this week to get it all out before the weekend so that everybody's got a good reach and idea when it's going to happen. And everyone who gets the link is encouraged to go ahead and share that link and information with everybody that you know. If you know someone that's going to be interested in that, I encourage you to just push out the information so we can get as many people involved as possible.
Other questions, Council?
Yes, a question for Dr. Sanders.
Councilman Baylor.
I don't know if I heard you answer the question. People that have already contracted COVID and got over it, should they be thinking about getting the shot, the vaccine?
Yes, absolutely. We've got some studies from the U.S. as well as from other countries that demonstrate there is some protection from natural immunity, but the protection from natural immunity plus vaccine far exceeds natural immunity. So we absolutely want everybody to get vaccinated. It is the #1 way that we're decreasing hospitalization and mortality from COVID, but really from Delta variant.
Other questions, Council? Okay, well, thank you, and thank you, Heather, for the timing there, because there was some concern about the Harbor Commission meeting that night at 6 and the school district meeting at 7 o'clock. Okay, so audience comments on excuse me, I talked over the top of you. Dr. Sanders? Or was that Heather?
It was me. I was just saying we were trying to be thoughtful with the time frame to allow everybody other meetings. I know Wednesdays is usually a busy day.
Thank you. And Dr. Sanders, did I hear you in there?
Nope, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate you calling in and for the update. Audience comments on agenda items? Okay, seeing none. Chairpersons and representatives of boards and commissions. And Dr. Sanders, did you want to give an update for the CCMC Authority Board?
Yes, I'd be glad to. So CCMC is just finishing up our 2020 audit. We also finished our Medicare cost report. We're getting a favorable cost report. We are going to get a decent settlement out of the cost report, just over $600,000 is what we anticipate. As we look forward over the next year, our budget, we think we're still running close to $500,000 in the red. This really impacts our ability to catch up on some of the deferred maintenance and some of the capital depreciation that we need to catch up on, but overall the hospital's revenue cycle has been significantly improving. One of our biggest challenges recently is we do not currently have any behavioral health therapists that are here in town. We only have teleremote services. We recognize the huge impact on the community. We want to have it in-person services as well. And we are trying very hard to recruit and or even bring in a temporary therapists. We have a couple of good leads. This is a high priority for us. We just have not been able to find anybody. There is a nationwide shortage for behavioral health. It is a very challenging field to recruit for. We are trying our best. We know that this has been a hard year and we have a lot of needs for counseling services here. So I'm glad to answer any questions. Other than the behavioral health, our staffing has been strong in the hospital, as well equipped and ready for anything.
Any questions, council? Okay, thank you, Dr. Sanders. Do we have a school board representative report tonight? Okay, seeing none, no student council representative. So approval of the consent calendar. We have two items, the minutes of August 18th, 2021 regular council meeting. And then per charter, section 2-8 and Cordova Municipal Code 3.12.022, the recordation of an excused absence now for Mayor Copeland and unexcused for Council Meyer from August 18th. Does council want to set any of those aside? Okay, roll call vote.
On the consent calendar, Melina Meyer,
Yes.
David Allison,
Yes.
Tom Baylor,
Yes.
Jeff Guard is absent, Kathy Sherman,
Yes.
David Gleason,
Yes.
and Ann Schaefer.
Yes.
The consent calendar is approved.
Okay, we don't have consideration of bids tonight. The minutes were in the consent calendar. Mayor's report, just give a verbal report tonight. You may have seen that the power cost equalization program, there was a legal challenge to the state to sweep and unsweep, reverse sweep those funds, and the courts did determine that it was that funding had been allocated by the legislature, so it wasn't subject to those sweeps, and so the Alaska Energy Authority reinstated those. So the power cost equalization, that endowment that had been built up over many years is still intact. The governor decided not to challenge that lower court ruling, so the PCE program, power cost equalization, is still in place. So that has positive implications for the city of Cordova and also the residential rate class. So you'll see those power cost equalization adjustments shown back up on your electric bills. I've been working with the Native Village of EAC to plan a trip back to DC the first week of October. In fact, I've already made arrangements for that and talked to Helen about that. Make it clear that I'll be representing the city there in discussions about coordinated healthcare and also Native Village's support for water infrastructure and port upgrades now, and also the RAISE grant and other applications that the city staff has submitted. I'm also scheduling meetings with our congressional delegation in addition to their staff for those. So hopefully we'll have some good outcomes there. And also, this is still pending, but the governor requested that the legislature approve funds that were already in place for some, what they call the emerging, or the Renewable Energy Grant Fund. Cordova's been a really large recipient those through Cordova Electric, and we did have a $294,000 grant request into that round 13 fund. And the House passed that a couple days ago, and I heard the Senate just passed that tonight. So I talked to the Alaska Energy Authority, and that hearing was this afternoon. So that'll be an opportunity to assess some other hydro opportunities here in the community. And that's all I had, unless there's any questions. Okay, city manager's report.
Thank you. I just want to give a couple of updates. On the finance side, as you all know, we've been in a little state of transition. I am going to be hiring a contract firm, got 2 applicants who will be helping our team get up to speed so that you have a financial report hopefully by the first meeting in October. Our audit is well underway. The team from BDO has been here and are going to be finalizing it about the same time. So my hope and promise to all of you is that we will have a real accurate financial report, the first meeting in October, knock on wood. Want to let you know I've been in close communication with the state around the raw fish tax from 2020. They don't expect those numbers to be available until the end of September, so we're still in a waiting mode there for those that are wondering what's happening. White Shed Road, I just want to give an update. I know there's been some concern in the community about some pieces of the road that are just in really bad shape, and we've been working with the state. They are looking at a long-term solution, which obviously is some years out, given the fact that they have to do engineering, but they've committed and have ordered signage, both speed restriction signage as well as dangerous road signage that will be placed on the road so that when the winter months and the dark months come up ahead, we have at least some kind of warning for people who are driving that stretch of road. So that will be taken care of here, hopefully soon. Just want to remind everyone on the community forum for COVID on September 8th, but in addition to that, it's Substance Abuse Month. We've had some issues with substance abuse in our community. We're doing a public forum on September 14th, and there'll be more information available on that, but we have all the providers, both law enforcement, mental health providers, and first responders. That will be part of a conversation where the community can understand how to access resources and what kinds of support are available to help those who are in need in our community. So that will be coming up on the 14th. And with that, I will pass the gavel back to Mr. Copeland.
Thank you, Helen. You just reminded me, I was just going to revert for a minute about the raw fish tax because we'd met with the Department of Revenue, but I thought that they told us they could tell us the numbers for this year's sooner. So, God.
No, they are pretty close-lipped because they're working the through their systems. And
Yeah.
I was promised as soon as they run the report, they're going to email it to me. And then the money itself won't be available until probably the end of October.
Well,
So we should have something here within the month.
I can tell you based on power sales, next year is going to look good.
Yeah.
So it's good to have a good year. Thank you. Clerk's report.
I just wanted to apologize for missing the last meeting. I think you guys know that I got stuck out on the fishing grounds. And the only action item tonight is an item that I had intended to be able to speak to last time. So I rewrote that memo and I hope I explained it a little bit better. But obviously I'm here tonight to help out with that. Otherwise, yesterday was first half property tax due date and things were rolling in pretty well. And finance department did great and Tina did great and we have a lot of money coming in. And that's all I have to report.
Thank you. And council, I kind of skipped ahead without asking if there were any questions for the manager. So any questions for the manager or clerk?
I would just
Councilman Gleason?
say thanks, Helen, for sticking with that White Shed thing. That's been, we've been getting letters from the Collinses for quite a while, and you drive out that road, and every time you go around that corner, it makes you want to go right next to the bank, and it's just a matter of time before somebody. So, and that's big. That's all the way down to the beach on that one side.
And again, the state has acknowledged that it's a priority project. They understand the danger there and are looking at it, but that just means instead of taking 10 years, it'll take 3. I'm sorry. But the signs are going up.
Other questions, council? Okay, we have correspondence, letter from Deaton regarding vaccines, letter from Collins regarding White Shed. Any comments, council? Councilman Gleason?
I would comment on William's letter. I'm vaccinated and I'm not worried about sitting next to an unvaccinated person, so I still think that they should let everybody go see that show. That's just my opinion. And make them wear a mask if they're worried. But I don't know what kind of juice we have with that, and I don't know what our policy is for renting that. We must have something in there that says you can't discriminate.
Only for protected classes. So, I mean, vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals don't fall into that federally mandated protected class. So we've talked to the attorneys about that, and it's not something that we would legally be able to do. So that's where we're at. I will say that Cordova Arts and Pageants has been actively looking at alternatives, including on-site testing. Those rapid tests are a possibility. I will say that there are a number of individuals in our community that are very uncomfortable being in a room with unvaccinated people. We looked at maybe 2 screenings, but the movie rights only allow 1 screening. So there's been a lot of conversations to try to find workarounds. I think it's still in play, but masks will be required no matter what. That's a given. And it's just a question of social distancing, how much room, blah, 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 blah. So we'll see where it goes.
Councilman Schaefer?
I was just gonna say, I think the most recent sign that I saw was vaccinated or showing proof of a negative test. And they're one of the signs that I saw posted. So even if you're not vaccinated and you have a negative test, you can go see the movie with your mask.
Okay, thank you. I'm just thinking, because last test I got, do they give you results? Okay.
You can get test results. You just need to call and you can get those.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other comments, correspondence? Okay, thank you.
Yes, Councilman Baylor.
Councilman Baylor.
Yeah, I guess I would support the Arts Pageant in their efforts to try to keep Cordovans safe and healthy. From somebody that just got news that a friend will not make it out of the hospital, a friend that decided not to get vaccinated, so it's probably an unnecessary death, but an unfortunate one. So, also in this letter talks about fear. I don't think there's any fear in any of us that get vaccinated. There's just concern for our fellow citizens, concern for our country to get back to work without government handouts. Fear seeing somebody go to a hospital and be tended to by doctors and nurses around the clock, see parents being stressed out to the max, see sisters and brothers, see their family, because they didn't get a COVID shot. No, there's not fear there. There's just sadness. That's all I got.
Okay, other comments, council? I don't have any. Let's see, ordinances and resolutions. We have resolution 8-21-38, a resolution of the council of the city of Cordova, Alaska, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Appraisal Company of Alaska for assessment services for tax year 2022 in the amount of $18,000.
Move to approve?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Discussion to your motion, Councilman Schaefer?
No, I don't really have any discussion unless the clerk wanted to give a brief summary, but I thought the memo was, the expanded memo too was pretty explanatory, and it makes the most sense at this point, so I support it.
Okay, Councilman Sherman, to your second.
Yes, I would just like to agree that expanded memo answered a lot of the questions that I had after last meeting. And I also feel like it makes sense at this time to do that. I didn't realize there were so few companies in Alaska, but so I'm in favor.
Okay, further discussion, council? Councilman Ellison.
Yeah, I appreciate the expanded memo and the other informal quotes that were on there, but I'll still go back to what I said at the last meeting, was that seems like every year we talk about this, gets to be around budget time, or but at that time it's too late to do anything for this year, so we'll consider it next year. Well, last year we said for definite, let's go out for RFPs, and by going out for RFPs, it doesn't mean calling people. That means doing an RFP, sending it out to them, letting them respond to that RFP, and going with that. And too many times, I guess, this body has allowed staff to do things their way and not the way we direct them to be done. And that's my beef with this, is that we asked for an RFP process to be gone through, and it was done informally, not through the formal RFP process, and the end result might be the same. It probably would be the same. But nonetheless, here we are again, now at a point where we're almost too late to do anything again, and we're going to be doing the budget, and it's going to be too late to do anything again, and here we go, let it slide another year. We should be going out for formal RFPs on these type of things, for the attorneys, for this. Every so often, not every 30 years or 10 years, but every 3 to 5 years, we should be doing it. And it's been a long time since we've gone through a formal RFP process for either appraising or the attorneys. So I'll throw the attorneys in there because we've asked about that a dozen times over the past 5 years as well. So anyway, I'm not going to support it because we haven't gone through that formal RFP process like this body asked for during the budget process last year. So
Helen?
I want to acknowledge what you said and to also offer an explanation that involves me, because Susan and I had lengthy conversations around it. We are on a paper system right now, and none of these other entities use a paper system. They use software. And to make a commitment to software is something that we have to do. We have to make that investment. We have to buy the software, and we have to commit to it, which then commits us to a solution provided by whatever company offers that software. I felt very strongly that we weren't in a position yet to make that assessment of what the right direction to be, especially given some of the layering that is possible through our addressing process and other things. So I asked for a pause, if you will. I will take full responsibility for that on behalf of Susan and what she's done here, but I feel that we're in a place where there's some transition happening, and I wanted the time to allow us to make those transitions in a way that would be best for city in terms of service as well as cost. So I just wanted to offer that explanation because I totally agree, and I did hear you say, let's put it out for RFP, but there's a lot of moving parts and pieces that influence the type of solution we're going to be looking forward in the future, and it will all involve us moving off of paper to a digital solution that we will have to invest in, and that will lock us into a provider.
Further discussion, council?
Councilman Baylor?
Councilman Baylor.
Yeah, I was agreeing with Councilman Allison's comments, and but I understand the city manager's position there, and I didn't read that anywhere in the packet here. What I did read is this informal RFP, and I mentioned this at the last meeting. As a contractor, I don't answer to informal RFPs. I'm not going to waste my time. And I would find out if you go down to Cordova Electric and ask them how much it's going to cost you to get your electrical service. They don't respond to informal RFPs either. You pay them, they come out, and then they give you a written performance. They don't waste their time either. So that's just the point I want to make about this. We did an informal RFP. They were useless. Thank you.
Okay, further discussion, council? Councilman Gleason, sorry.
I thought, Helen, you've mentioned that twice about that software, right? Because I remember you telling us about that earlier. Not that I disagree with Dave, Councilman Allison, he was correct in what he said, but these numbers wouldn't change whether we, for the purposes of solving this tonight, these would be the numbers that would be on an RFP. So obviously, the guy we've been, or the outfit we've been going with, the cheap ones, I think we would all decide to vote on that. and these other two places require the software you're talking about, right, Helen?
Yeah, so, and I'm going to turn to Susan here.
We really don't have, I guess my point is we don't have any other choice but to currently, to go with.
If we are going to stay on paper, the only folks that'll do that is appraisal company, correct, Susan? Yeah. You want to go ahead and answer? You can give some.
Well, I mean, I sent the same list of questions to 3 entities, and they all came back with an electronic version. When we then decided that we weren't going to go that route because I would need tech support, I would need to know exactly what we were going to put in place, would it mesh with the addressing that's going on right now. So then I felt like we had to get started for the 2022 tax year, and what if we just stay on paper for 1 more year? An appraisal company was willing to give me a contract amount for just staying on our normal cards.
And the other 2 do not provide a card service. So we would have to commit to a software solution. Appraisal company also has a software solution, and we would want to make an assessment of those 3 companies and what they offer us, not only from a cost perspective, but a short-term cost perspective, but from a long-term, what kind of investment in software is required, what kind of maintenance is required, blah, 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 blah. So, and we just didn't have the ability to get the information we needed to make that decision fast enough.
How much is that software? Do you know how much it's going to cost for that software?
Well, you can see it in the other solutions, right? 27,000 for the software. 29 in the.
But then we'd also need to know if our server has capabilities for that, and so, and I don't know the answers to that, both for appraisal company doing it that way, which includes a second contract with this Alaska CAMA company, and then Alaska Assessment Services does it incorporated into that 36, but I have no idea what that exactly entails, the computer program that he uses. I don't know. But yeah, it
How
would
long
include,
would it take to find out? 'Cause I mean, if we're not gonna decide this tonight, we're gonna have to know, seems like we're gonna have to know that.
well, all that's before you tonight is whether or not you're saying yes to appraisal company. So I guess.
And a paper solution.
Yeah.
And they're the only company that offers that paper solution.
Right, that's what I'm saying. That's really our only choice. Otherwise, we need to figure out how much it's going to cost us to get all the software so that we can, if it was decided to go with one of the other 2 outfits.
Right, which is why we're requesting that we wait another year for that, because if we are going to a system that's not going to be just on our paper cards, we're already months behind starting for 2022, because it's going to take months to enter all of the information that's on those cards. And, you know.
Yeah, I'm okay with staying with the APCO there. I'm okay with that, so I'll
Okay.
stop there.
That's where I was going to say. It sounded like you're speaking in favor of the motion. So further discussion, council? Councilman Meyer.
Yeah, I'm always in favor of going digital instead of having everything on paper, but I think it makes a lot of good sense to keep it how it is with COVID, us changing systems in a lot of different things in the city. I just think that this is one thing that we can put off for a little while, and so I'm in support of this motion how it is. I do think that it's going to take a long time to get things on the digital record. I mean, I don't know how far back the tax record and cards are going to go, so I think the sooner that we try to go down that route, the better, but I think for 2022, we should go ahead and move forward with the same company that we have been.
Okay, sounds another in favor. Any further discussion, council? Roll call vote, please.
Tom Baylor,
No.
Dave Gleason,
Yes.
Ann Schaefer,
Yes.
David Allison,
No.
Jeff Gard is absent, Melina Meyer,
Yes.
Kathy Sherman.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-2.
Okay, we have no unfinished business. So we have discussion of COVID-19 emergency response. Any discussion, council? Okay, pending agenda. Guess the first question is September 2nd meeting one that we consider, or it's up to will of council, I guess?
September
We can
2nd?
consider anyone.
The second September meeting,
Oh,
the third Wednesday. Just wondering if there's any pressing agenda items for that one, or if we have any plans.
I don't know what's coming on planning. That's the
Okay.
only thing I think.
Well, good enough. We'll assume we're having one unless we hear otherwise. Anything else for pending agenda? Councilman Schaefer.
I was just wondering if we had an updated date for the work session with the Cordova Volunteer Fire Department.
right.
So Mike Hicks just returned to town. He emailed me today and asked to have a meeting. We did find a temporary solution, not a temporary, we found a interim solution that is moving towards a permanent solution. We've hired 2 people full-time to work with the fire department, EMS trained individuals. We obviously have an issue with volunteers, and that's something that's going to take some recruitment and some effort. And again, Hicks just returned to town, and we'll have a meeting next week with Paul Trombley, myself, and he will be in the room, and probably someone with the volunteers, and we'll get a work session on the agenda, but because he just arrived back, we'll be waiting, probably be into either the last meeting of this month or more likely in early October.
Okay, thank you.
We did put a date, though, for the joint meeting with Planning Commission is October 6th.
Okay.
That work session.
Councilman Allison.
Yeah, I would like to update the number 7. Keeping that on the list, but getting that started early next year, that RFP, and I would like to add city attorneys to that request for RFPs list as well. And I don't know that needs to go on a pending agenda or it needs to go on a work list for city staff, but we'd like to make sure that we have both of those on our radar for early next year, not,
Yeah.
during the budget.
And I was just thinking as we were talking about that earlier, Susan, it seemed like we did go out to RFP for attorneys just right when I started as mayor.
When Randy was here, I know that.
Yeah, that's right, just about 6 years ago. But if you have a record of that or could kind of remind us in your next clerk's report.
Sure.
And I'm thinking too, now that I think about it, the second September meeting, I think NV is trying to meet with Helen and that team and bring any information to that September meeting before we go back to DC. So to kind of update council and let Helen and the team, let them know where they're at and where they're headed. So. Okay, audience participation.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Baylor.
Yeah, I guess I just want to comment on the work session with P&Z. That was definitely one I was looking forward to. Unfortunately, I will be out of town and not be available on the phone. If it's possible to reschedule it, that would be great. And I realize things are in motion, other people have their day. So, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Not seeing any audience participation. Okay, council comments. I'll start online with Councilman Sherman.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to compliment and thank you, Helen, for working on the white shed issue. That was something I was going to bring up, and you answered it before I could bring it up. I also wanted to comment on my opinion with Cordova Arts and Pageants. I appreciate what they're doing, and I think they are doing everything to the utmost to keep the community safe, and I will be attending, and I'm vaccinated, and I will be masked. And then I wanted to thank Heather for, I know she probably did a lot of work on organizing this Q&A session with Dr. Zink and next week, and I really appreciate that, because after last week's meeting, I think that's what the community asked for, and I'm really happy that we can provide this forum, and I hope all will tune in and pay attention and listen and learn and ask questions, and I hope it's successful in that regard. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilman Sherman. I just want to reiterate from what I heard earlier that they're requesting pre-filing questions so that they can kind of answer those right at their overview at the front end. So thanks. Councilman Baylor?
Yeah, I guess a heartfelt thank you to the medical staff here in Cordova and elsewhere. With my travels, I've talked to some of those folks, and they are tired and worn out and just so disappointed that they have to give all this extreme care to people that didn't get vaccinated. It's hard on them. The other thing I was wondering about with the appraisal company, I would assume the way we are doing it now on paper, there's a lot of staff time involved, and I think that's part of the calculus when we look at go digital. And I would throw out, maybe this is the year for the manager to kind of get involved and audit that process. How long does it take staff to start this and go through their process for this year? And I think that would help me when we start talking about money being spent to go digital, to what is our savings going to be on staff time? What is the impact on staff time? So I wonder what others think about that, but that might be something to look at this year.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Guard's absent. Councilman Schaefer, comments?
Big thank you to Helen and Heather for organizing that forum next week with Dr. Zink and Dr. Sanders. That's going to be a really good resource for the community. So please make sure to share with everyone you know so you can get the information you need. And yeah, thanks for coming tonight. It's nice to have an audience. And I would encourage everyone to go get vaccinated and continue to wear your masks. Thank you.
Councilman Gleason.
Just thanks to everybody that came to the meeting, and I agree with Tom. It's nice to know how much it's going to cost and what it'll save. That's a good idea. And I'd like to thank Dr. Sanders for everything she does, and Heather, trying to keep the town as safe as you guys can and give us the tools to do it. So I like your answers, and you're very frank, and regardless of outside pressure, I appreciate that.
Councilman Gleason.
I just talked.
I'm sorry, Councilman. I'm looking at Councilman Allison and saying Gleason.
Yeah, I'm termed out next March. I've got a lot of history on the council. And I just get frustrated with council requesting things like that RFP for the auditors and it not getting done. Because without somebody pressuring it and somebody shepherding it, next year this time, it's going to come up on our agenda again to approve the contract with Appraisal Company of Alaska. And by that time, it's going to be too late to go out for RFPs. So if we don't keep it on the agenda, don't keep it on the radar, If staff, forgets about it or whatever, it's going through the cracks. It's happened every year for at least the past 3 years, and it's probably happened 10 times over the past 15 years. Same thing with the RFPs for the attorneys and anything that we do every year with any kind of contract. Every few years, we should be getting it re-upped and at least let those people know that have that contract that it's not a guarantee that they're going to get that contract all the time. They have to perform and they have to keep the price reasonable, or we're looking at other options. So I just want to keep the pressure on. That's why I asked it to remain and be put on the pending agenda so that we don't forget, because that's what's going to happen. You're going to be sitting here next September with a contract before you, and hopefully that's not the case. And I hope that everybody keeps the pressure on. Regarding the vaccinated, unvaccinated thing, I again go back to what I said at the last meeting is what are we trying to protect? We hear different things from different people. Are we trying to prevent the spread? Then we should be testing everybody. We shouldn't be saying vaccinated versus unvaccinated. The more information that comes out, the more it's known that vaccinated people can catch it just as easy as anybody else, and they can spread it just as easy as somebody who hasn't been vaccinated. So if we're trying to protect the community from getting it, then that's one thing. If we're, obviously the studies have also shown, and the data has also shown, that getting the vaccination increases the odds of staying out of the hospital, not being as sick. So, but quite honestly, that's my choice. If I want to take the odds of getting it and ending up in the hospital, that's me. Anyway, I think that the health system needs to maybe reevaluate their protocols for treating this. Everything that I've heard and studied and know about from experience is that there are many treatments that will work better if performed as soon as you know you've got it, or as soon as you know that you're a close contact. For the new monoclonal thing that they're rolling out in Florida, and Alaska is considering that too. Dr. Zink has talked about that and starting to do that. But that doesn't work if you wait until you can't breathe and you have to go to the hospital. The data from Anchorage had 154 COVID patients in Alaska hospitals, which they said plugged up the ICUs. But then in that same paragraph, on the news anyway, and this, if you believe what the news is saying, that 154 people was only 15% of the total hospitalizations. So there's obviously a lot of beds elsewhere, but obviously we're putting all the COVID people into the ICUs because we're not treating them until they get to the point where they need an ICU. We need to start treating these people early with the various treatments, vitamins, protocols, monocloids, other drugs that help when it's early on in the case. I know for a fact that I have several relatives that have had COVID, a couple who have passed away from it, and the treatment was nothing until they got to a ventilator. Nothing. Go home, put an oxygen tube in your mouth or in your nose and try to breathe. There was no medicine. There was no drugs of any kind. There was no vitamins. There was nothing. Even the one relative of mine that got COVID that didn't end up in the hospital, again, same thing. Nothing. Just stay away from everybody for 14 days, take your temperature every day, and if you don't end up having to need oxygen and in the hospital, great for everybody. Anyway, we need to do treatments early on and not wait until everybody's in the ICU. Obviously, there's plenty of hospital beds if they need to give somebody high-dose vitamins by IV or some other treatment by IV. They don't need to do that in the ICU. You only need that ICU when you're near to a ventilator. So anyway, I know that none of us can control what the healthcare system does as far as protocols, but if it ain't working, which obviously whatever they're doing isn't working, worse now than it has ever been with the COVID hospitalizations and the ICU beds. So it ain't working. We need to change how we're doing things. So anyway, that's my soapbox for the night. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Allison. Councilman Meyer.
Yeah, I just also want to thank everybody for all the hard work that's going on, and really do appreciate Whiteshed Road being addressed with at least signs in the short term. I think that has been brought up in letters and us requesting it to the state since I've been on council. And I didn't know why it took so long to get some signs. So I'm really happy that, Helen, you followed up with that and they're going to bring some signs in, because it's a quick fix or something we can do until it can actually be fully addressed. I also really want to thank the healthcare providers here locally. It is really difficult. I don't work in the healthcare field. I don't know what's going on, but I know that they're extremely tired and have been working around the clock COVID. And I can just imagine that it feels like you're probably living in two different worlds. One is the hospital world of it being overcrowded, not enough workers, and then coming out and, people really arguing about mask, unmasked, vaccinated. I don't know what the best thing to do is, but I just wear my mask, I'm vaccinated, encourage other people to do so, and just be really kind to one another. Everybody makes their own decisions. But I feel for the healthcare workers, and not having enough staff is hard. I think everyone around, you need people. People are what we need. So I think we do need to be kind to one another. And I feel for people that can't get medical care that don't have to do with COVID because the hospitals are full, and you make a trip up to Anchorage and have an appointment, but they have to cancel it because they're too busy and don't have enough staff to do something. And preventative, other things are going to be coming up. If you get in a car accident, they're medevacing people to the lower 48 right now. So it's just a really hard time. So I just want us all to try to be kind to one another. I really appreciate the work that people are trying to do. Don't have a personal opinion really about the arts and pageants. I think they're renting out the facility, and if they're trying to cater to a certain audience that feel comfortable going to a space with people vaccinated or have a negative test recently, wearing masks, then maybe that's an outlet for some of those people that haven't felt comfortable going out to the general public. I know that there are places for people to go and do things. I don't think it's completely blocked off to some people, and everybody's just, I think, really trying to do the best that everybody can do. So hope we can all be kind to one another and just do the best you can for yourself and your family. And I think that's what everybody's trying to do. So thanks.
Okay, thanks, Councilman Meyer. One more motion.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Is there any objection? We're adjourned.
I was going for my mic, Dave. You beat me. I'm tired.